All smiles, everybody's woken up. The last panel was so good. Let's continue with that momentum. Let's add more value to the audience. I'm sure this panel will do justice to that. We are going to be talking about, is Neha joining in as well? Sorry. Neha? Neha, you there? Yes. Super, super. Let's kickstart. Our panel is Sustainable Urban Development, a Blueprint for Green Cities. And as we move into 2025, urban landscape, India's urban landscape is rapidly evolving, shifted by regulatory moves as well as climate imperatives and advancement in both construction and infrastructure development. Cities are expanding at an unprecedented pace, and there's so much that we need to do in terms of corporate India. Alok, let me start with you. Scaling green practices across projects. With Pallonji pan-India's presence across various cities, what uniform green construction practices are being adopted across your sites? And what are the key hurdles? And that's the second part of it. What are the key hurdles Shapoorji Pallonji faces in influencing other stakeholders, such as clients, architects, regulatory bodies, to prioritize sustainability in construction?
Yeah, good afternoon. Actually, it's a paradox. Development or construction is a little detrimental to sustainability. We remove the topsoil, we dig it, we use the mined material in the form of cement or steel. We uproot trees sometime. All sort of destruction with regard to but still within that how we operate. Second part of it is, as a contracting company, Shapoorji Pallonji has a very limited bandwidth in deciding primarily the type of construction, the design of construction, probably up to the material of construction. How we construct it while we do it in the practices. So within that bandwidth, I would be speaking about, because what we make is what client wants, what we construct is what an architect designs. So that also includes the specification of the material, the design and the type and the finish and all. But within our construction activities, we started with the measurement, what earlier panel said, that we tried to understand how much is our impact of our normal commercial project in Mumbai. We conducted a study around 10 years back and found out that again, 91%, 92% is primarily steel and cement. The impact carbon footprint. We really do not have control over that. So that's sad. I mean, coming to know about that, but that's the reality. We really cannot do it, because concrete, probably you may know, is the second largest consumed material after water on the planet. And further study shows that there's huge scope of improvement, but right now there's no alternate to concrete. For last 100 years or so, we still use cement and material. Probably that in raw material we keep trying different substitutes, but that again comes from the nature. Instead of riverbed cement, we are having manufacturing sand. So that's another option. But I think impact continues.
I'm sorry, Alok, but if I may just interrupt here. The previous panel we heard Shree Cement and how they've been able to contain their carbon footprint. I think if we don't have an alternative to rail intense, recyclable green cement, I think we can make wiser choices in terms of which are the cement companies who are reducing their carbon footprint and have them as our value chain partners.
Exactly. So that's where, if you go a little deeper into the mechanism of the construction ecosystem, the type of cement, type of concrete mix which we make, we optimize the use of cement by design mix, but then again, everything is approved by the client or architect. So we are handcuffed there. But in our practices, I say we try and minimize the wastage starting from there, and do certain practices which are entirely controlled by us, where we can reduce the impact of a balance 8% of our activity. It starts from the wastage that we try and then minimize. The norm for the reinforcement cement steel wastage at a construction is around 2.5 to 3% of the whole. Maybe it goes in hundreds of tons. And then we try and use it automatic bar bending machine, which brings it to 0.26% of wastage per project. So that's a substantial saving on that account. There's an option here of recycled steel also, but again, there's a no from the prospective clients, which we say no, it has to be a virgin steel. So that again, we know it, but we cannot use it. We recommend wherever possible.
Thank you so much, Alok. And I know that's, I think a lot of, I would say capacity creation, but knowledge is required to disseminate to your architects, to your other partners, so that they are more willing to accept the change that is coming through. But thank you so much for your comments. Moving onwards, Swapnil, lovely talking to you earlier the other day. And Infosys has been a leader in AI-driven sustainable solutions. I think with the smart city shifting focus to long-term impact, how is Infosys using AI and digital twin technology to optimize urban energy use as well as infrastructure maintenance at scale?
Yeah, so probably what I'm going to, again, thank you so much. I'm probably going to take a step back and look at contextualizing the question here. Today, and this is basis the entire journey that we have had at Infosys for being a carbon neutral company that we are today with our ESG 2030 vision in place and an ambition to be net zero very soon, right? So if I have to contextualize this, right, we are currently today at an inflection point where the cities really need to focus on measuring impacts as a result of decarbonization initiatives that are already in place. A whole bunch of interventions are there, right? The idea is to use digital technologies, obviously, because that will assist and help. How do we democratize the benefits of what decarbonization can get us? How do you actually improve human lives in cities that are growing, day in, day out? At Infosys, every Infosys campus is a mini city in itself, right? It has hospitals and software development blocks and hostels and so on and so forth. And we've realized that for us to be able to accelerate sustainability interventions to achieve decarbonization at scale, we need to use digitalization. And these include technologies like digital twins and artificial intelligence, right? So a digital twin essentially is a virtual model of a physical asset, which you replicate it onto your computers, and then you are able to actually look at how do you perform, how does an asset behave over the life cycle, right? And then when you amplify it to a cityscape, you're able to understand what an interconnected, instrumented, and intelligent city would look like. Take a case in example. Water is one of the most stressed resources today. And when we have to look at how water is being treated, right, a water treatment plant or a sewage treatment plant can qualify as a digital twin for you to be able to actually monitor the parameters of the water and how much water actually goes to municipal drains, right? So those are those initiatives that we have in place. We have what we call as sustainability cloud as a solution for our clients as well, and we use that internally. Now, this integrates multiple IT and IoT ecosystems together to be able to give you, what is it that you need to do from a design perspective, from an operations perspective, and so on and so forth. And we have something called as AI for ESG, which basically looks at all the data that is available as a result of your IoT ecosystems, as a result of, different layers of data, and then allows you to do pattern analysis to give insights into making the best decisions. So if I have to create a building, and to your point that if I knew which cement manufacturers had the lowest embodied carbon, I would probably use that cement to design a building, are the decisions that AI can help you take when they look at data.
Thank you. That's very well answered, Swapnil. And it's an education, trying to understand twin technology. What was it? Digital twin technology itself. Rohit, let's move on to you. You are the Chief Design and Sustainability Officer at Godrej Properties. Climate responsive urban planning. It's something that everybody's talking about these days. What is Godrej properties sustainability approach beyond certifications? How beyond integrating biodiversity assessments, indigenous landscaping, and the efforts to reduce urban heat island effect? I mean, how are these strategies really influencing city-level urban planning? And do you see municipal bodies across the cities and states you're building and constructing properties aligning with such climate-responsive design principles?
Thanks. A complicated question.
It is.
I
had
wish
to
I
pose it
had
to
all
you.
the answers. So I'll take it as a two-part question. So first is, see, like we also use a lot of artificial intelligence while we're designing the building. So it all starts when we are identifying a site. The moment we identify a site which we have to develop or take over, the first thing is we do a biodiversity assessment of that particular site, the impact that is going to have it going to have on the biodiversity of the surroundings. We also look at climate mitigation at the day one itself. If there is a if there is a potential of flooding or these things, we at day one we try and mitigate that particular aspect. Then moving on, when we design our buildings, again we do a complete simulation, energy modeling. We look at how placement of each building is going to impact the heat island effect. We also look at, in fact, we've designed few of our projects in which there has been a substantial reduction in the ambient temperature from the surrounding temperature. So we've placed the buildings, we use the wind tunnel, the wind effect, and the orientations of the building. We try and retain as many trees as possible until unless, again, it's like a sometimes it's a business call, but what we do is, if we are cutting trees, or rather we don't try and cut trees, we transplant them. And if we are transplanting, and in some cases it's mandatory, we plant 5 times or 10 times more trees than what we are disturbing. So that's basically how we try and mitigate the overall impact. Your second question about how the municipalities are. So I've seen over the years municipalities are becoming more and more conscious towards this. Most of the projects pan-India we are doing, the municipalities are now pushing for Mother Earth greens, and as much as 10 to 15% of Mother Earth greens. So that's a big this thing. In fact, recently in Haryana also they've started insisting. In fact, the environment bodies have started insisting on that, and we've responded very well. In fact, wherever, in fact, traditionally also wherever it was possible for us, we have done a lot of projects where we have given Mother Earth greens, planted trees.
Thank you so much, Rohit. I'm so sorry, I'll have to stop you there. I know you've been doing a lot, but I have a time constraint to kind of work around. Neha, I hope you're still around. Thank you for joining us all the way from New Delhi. Am I correct? Great. Neha, you are the Associate Director for Climate Policy Initiative. Now, my question is around financing sustainable urban development. And I know you've been writing a lot and doing a lot of advocacy with various stakeholders around this. So, Climate Policy Initiative has been instrumental in mobilizing climate finance for sustainable infrastructure. Is that correct? Okay.
We support through various project-related facilities, but we're not financiers ourselves.
Yeah, you play a very good role in mobilizing the whole funnel of sustainable capital and climate capital. What are the innovative financing mechanisms or public-private partnerships do you see as critical for scaling sustainable urban development in India?
Thanks, Chandni, and really great to hear some of the stuff that the panelists something you're talking about. So, to answer your question, first of all, public-private partnerships, absolutely yes. Where innovative finance is concerned, we tend to try and use that word a little carefully, because if you really go back in the last 30 years, true innovation in the finance space can be counted on one hand, possibly. The VGF model in infrastructure was one such example, or the deferred tax liability was another example. But by and large, if we can get the basic financing models right and figure out how to do the risk measurement, because more than innovating in finance, it's about getting the risk parameters right, because like everyone here has mentioned, there is a business case that has to be adhered to. That is also true for finance, if they have a business case that they have to adhere to. So if you can get the risk return profile right, it's easier. Now when we're talking urban, and especially cities, at the cities level, one more example I actually innovated that was way ahead of its time. I think it was the 100 smart cities that were planned. I think they've given some fabulous results. But where we stand currently, what would really drive drive finance into sustainable models is one, having a different paradigm into how we evaluate the returns on a model. So if there is a sustainable building that a company is willing to put, can we use technology to sort of monitor it, bring out the returns that it can bring in a better way? But the second aspect here would be that at cities level, public finance is a big constraint, because the devolution of finance cannot happen beyond what is defined as per norms. Public sector therefore can do in the current form little. We have seen some examples of municipals raising green bonds. Indore is an example, Ghaziabad is an example, and those are effective. However, that's not the norm. States are already stretched with their finances. And so I would say that public-private would literally mean the speaker before me, I think, gave a perfect example of how the private sector would step in and create those public-private partnerships.
Thank you, Neha. It's a very important perspective, and I think it has to grow. I think there's much more effort and desire and motivation to be provided. Both carrots and sticks have to be kind of articulated to have this kind of address. Thank you for your perspective. I'll come back to my in-house panelists, and Alok, please, if I may request you to be a little more crisp, we'll just do the last round a little more tight, and so that we have some questions for the audience to also ask. Decarbonizing the construction space, I think a very crucial ask in terms of even our NDCs for India. Shapoorji, Pallonji has definitely been on the forefront of large-scale construction projects. Now, given the increasing regulatory push on decarbonization, how are you integrating low-carbon materials and net zero strategies in your developments without inflating project costs?
You know, this legal push or whatever state of the push is still advisory or voluntary. Once it becomes mandatory, it must take a shape for everybody to follow. Because unless there's an option available, the people will go for cheaper. The construction is based on this thing of L1. The lowest rate will get the job. So that's where everything comes in. There's no imbibing or embodiment of the provisions for this type of business. But as I told you, within the purview of business, if there's a project which is EPC kind of business, where we have the empowerment of designing that, we recommend designing selection of better materials where the impact of their footprint is lesser. And we also encourage the client, if they wish to go for LEED, GRIHA or ratings, better ratings. I have 3 examples of projects where we suggested the client and they opted for better and sustainable, which are in line with SDG 11, that sustainable, safe, cohesive, resilient, this type of construction. One is the top-down construction where there is a high-rise and we constructed all floors on the ground and raised them up. They are a little costlier but very safe, very sustainable practice. Another one is another construction which we did is there was no use, no DGs, no fossil fuel use. All backups is battery.
Nice.
So
nice.
that is another point, and both the clients I'll name you is Google and Microsoft.
Very
so that's
nice.
where it has to distill down in India. but we know those practices, we can use them, but still tight in terms of. And another example I want to give is a very, very practical example. We have to cure the concrete when we open the shuttering to keep it cool, and we pour water on that. Very popular practice, but against sustainability. There's a solution. There's a curing compound which we have to brush it over, and then we don't need water. But we have example of clients saying, no, use water for it. So that's where we are handcuffed. We know the practices, wherever possible, we adopt them.
Thank you so much, Alok. That's insightful. I think a lot more education is needed at the client's end. Swapnil, with AI refining urban planning, how do you see the intersection of smart city initiatives and ESG metrics evolving? And what role does Infosys play in ensuring AI-powered sustainability solutions lead to real environmental impact rather than just efficiency gains? And I know they can go hand in hand, but I don't want the real environmental impact being compromised for efficiency gains.
Sure, and again, multiple things, right? One of the things that we need to be very careful about when we talk about AI is that just like greenwashing, we should not get into AI washing aspects, right? That you use AI for anything and say that you're deriving efficiencies. That's not what it is. When you really look at AI and use of AI into multiple interventions when you create smart, sustainable cities, it is important that we have a look into what is called as integrated ESG metrics, if you will, right? And when I talk about ESG metrics, these are metrics that are associated with policy, investments, research and development, technology, and human capital, right? So 5 levers that essentially will qualify to give the right data sets that can then be used by algorithms that AI generates to give you the right set of insights to be able to make a difference, right? So that's the first aspect. The second aspect when it comes to Infosys has solutions around Infosys Cobalt and Infosys Topaz, which basically then looks at how these data models are structured. How do you collect data from different data sources, structure them, synthesize them, and then eventually report it for you to be able to take advantage of what these insights are as they get generated, right? I want to touch upon compliance for a bit.
Sorry, I'm running out of time, Swapnil. But thank you so much. That's important perspective, and I'm sure the audience can connect with you directly, bilaterally,
Sure, yeah.
and learn a lot more from you. I'm sure we'll have many opportunities. Rohit, again, very succinctly, probably in 1 or 2 sentences, Godrej Properties has committed to ensuring that its projects achieve green building certifications. Given your focus, and there's a very strong focus on sustainability, how do you address supply chain challenges? And if you can just, in very crisp words.
So this has been our focus, the supply chain management, and our short-term target also, which we've taken on SBTI is a vendor-specific target that we've taken, and we've now started engaging with a lot of vendors. Happy to say, my team told me Shri Cement is one of our suppliers. So,
Congratulations.
So we've been engaging with all the vendors, and slowly we'll be moving to a matrix where our preferred vendor base will be the ones who are working towards low carbon embodied materials and all. And we, as in at our sites, we've started using waste to create concrete curbs, and the wet waste we are using for concrete curbs. We are using GGSB, which is a green concrete in a lot of our projects. So I think we're taking strides. Obviously, again, the entire ecosystem has to come together for the green materials to become. So as green materials become scalable, I think they'll become cheaper also. And the moment they become cheaper, and
it becomes business as usual.
And I personally remain very hopeful, and I see the entire world rallying towards it.
Awesome.
I mean,
Thank you,
US being.
Oh, US, let's not go there. Neha, you're still around, and at that, thank you for that. And let's talk about a little about policy and implementation challenges. When policy frameworks support while policy frameworks support green cities, implementation gaps often hinder progress. You know, there's a gap between what policy does and by the time we are on the ground, we are struggling with implementation measures. Based on CPI's work, what are the biggest policy or financial bottlenecks in integrating renewable energy, green mobility, or resilient infrastructure? I know I'm not going to give you enough time. You can just take a pick and just help us understand this more clearly. Why is there a huge gap between policy and implementation?
I'll actually address one challenge which is common to all three, which is capacity building. The fact of the matter is that the language that a policymaker is talking, the language that the regulator is talking, the language that the industry is talking, and the language that the end users are talking, they're not the same. So it took us the longest time to get people to understand the difference between climate, green, sustainable, and ESG.
Awesome.
It's still an ongoing task, right? Because there are so many nuances, and these are such new terms that have now been brought into the forefront, and everyone's talking about them. So capacity building, not only on these terms, but also about why it's important. A report by NIUA actually highlights that out of the 226 Indian cities, only 15 had climate level action plans. Now, if there's no action plan at the city level, there is a gap between policy and implementation, and that capacity building first has to happen at that stage. The second is that even if there are plans, where is the financing coming from? As like I mentioned, cities do not have enough revenue sources, and so the private sector role increases, but also having facilities, and NIUA and WI actually have launched a project operating facility. CPI also runs project operating facilities where we handle small businesses to enable them to raise capital. Once you get the businesses to be able to raise capital, automatically revenue one stream starts flowing into the city. And the last part is collaboration. So if I would put it into a 3C framework: capacity building, collaboration, and capital mobilization. The collaboration between horizontals and verticals of the government. Very, very critical, because right now different ministries are talking different languages. So short and sweet: capacity building, collaboration, and capital mobilization.
Very succinctly put, Neha. Congratulations, and exactly my thoughts. Thank you so much for that. I think, thank you again, panelists. Wonderful thoughts that you've shared, wonderful practice that you've shared. And I think from Shapoorji, Pallonji's context, there's so much challenges, and you're also kind of weaving it into what Neha is saying. Capacity building, people have to be educated, they have to be talking the same language, but at the same point of time, just building policies and just articulating things is not enough. There should be an action plan so that things can start moving ahead. What I'll do is, at this stage, I'll open the floor for some questions. We are going to be running out of time, so we'll take 2 at best. Please, the lady there in the front.
Yeah, this question is for Neha.
Neha,
Yeah.
it's for you.
So is there any actual case study about, the sustainable financing of a project with PPP model for urban sustainable infrastructure building? Have you helped? Is there any case study where you have actually helped in PPP mode any of the urban sustainable infrastructure project to raise sustainable finance, or you guided them?
Where CPI has actually, first, other case studies, yes. Other case studies where CPI has directly helped, in the Indian context, it would not be there because we are an analysis advisory, effectively we are not for profit. But there are case studies that you will find, and if you reach out through the organizers, I'll be happy to share those examples. There is sustainable financing happening. It is very nascent yet in the sustainable finance space.
Sure, we'll reach out, definitely. Thank you.
Thank you, Neha.
Hi. My name is Rachit. I work for a climate-first tech company called Step Change. So this question is to everybody on the panel, right? Alok, so you mentioned that in the construction industry, today everything is based on L1, L2, L3, right? So most economically viable vendor is where business goes. But there are so many articles and data that suggest that if we proceed in business as usual, we are not going to hit the 1.5 or 2 degrees Celsius global average mean temperature. So my question to you is, if we continue in business as usual and expect this only to come from foreign clients where they are looking at green buildings, where they want to be sustainable, what are the initiatives or something that you can do, like take a first step, right? And actually nudge the current clients. It does not have to be international clients, but across the scale, Indian, Middle Eastern, whoever it is, to actually adopt more sustainable practices right from the get-go, right? Because today we know that the construction industry globally contributes to about 40% of the global greenhouse gases, and if I'm not mistaken, in India it's about 25 to 26%. Right, so it's just...
You need to wind up that question, please.
Yeah, so that's my question, right? I want to know, what are we doing today, to actually nudge the industry and nudge the clients to go forward and adopt more...
Thank you. Anybody who would like to take it?
I can take that. I have a very short answer to a pretty long question, right? If you Google Infosys Assure program, right, this is our ways and means to accelerate decarbonization in the built environment. We are going to consult with building owners to the tune of 100 million square feet on how they can create sustainable built environment free of cost, right? So that's a CSR activity, that's one. Second, all information data that we talk around from a sustainability perspective is available in public domain. So you will be able to go onto websites, and I can point out to those multiple websites that have ESG data books, the entire methodology of how the carbon footprint is being calculated, sources, traceability, etc., etc. So what we are doing our bit. But what is needed is a large-scale adoption, and Neha rightly pointed out, right, capacity building is the key. It is for people to actually step up and make use of the best practices that are already available.
Thank you so much for engaging, dear audience, and thank you so much to my panelists. It's been really wonderful having Neha, you from virtually, and Rohit, Alok, and Swapnil. Thank you for your contribution. Thank you.